Hey guys, so this week we are going to be looking at decimals. We're going to review our decimals unit. We're going to start just by kind of looking at place value. So you're going to notice this screen is kind of like the one I used last week with the fractions. Instead, this week we're going to use decimals. So the screen's going to be a little different. You won't need all of the things that are in the screen. I'm going to provide you with the link to access this. You're going to notice that some of the stuff I'm going to have to draw. So if you need to remember your place value, as I'm doing this, I would suggest that you have paper and pencil and that you are drawing as I am creating one. They do not give you a place value chart, so therefore you will have to draw your place value chart. The first thing we're going to look at is just decimal place value. Remember that this year we only went to the hundredths place. That's the furthest that we went. So we're going to look at and remind ourselves what are the place values when decimals are included. Now remember, anything behind the decimal is like a part of a whole. Okay, so we need to remember that the tenths and the hundredths were the only place values we looked at. So I'm going to use my writing tool and I'm going to create a place value chart. I'm not going to go very far into this place value chart. I will provide you with the place value chart in my slides so you have something to reference in case we need to go further past what I'm giving you here in this video. Okay, I'm going to start by labeling my place value chart. Like I said, I'm not going to go very far with this. So first of all, we're going to recognize that we go all the way to the hundredths. Remember, the further we move to the right, the smaller our number is getting. So after we move past our whole numbers, we're getting into a part of a whole, which is a decimal. So my decimal here, and this is going to represent the tenths and the hundredths. I know this is not very pretty. And then over to the other side of my decimal is where we're going to have our whole numbers. So the ones, the tens, and the hundred. Like I said, this is not the prettiest place value chart. It's just something to get us started. I will give you a place value chart that is not completed, and therefore you can complete it and you can copy it to remind yourself of place value if you forgot the place value, because you're going to need it once we get further into this. The first thing we're going to look at is the place value and just understanding the place value. When I say a fraction, where would that number go? So the first fraction, or decimal I should say, I'm going to give it to you in decimal or fraction form because that's easier. When I say 1/10, you know what 1/10 looks like as a fraction. Now I need you to understand what does that look like as a decimal. So if I have 1/10, I'm going to go into my place value chart and put a 1 in the tenths place. Everywhere else, what do you think we should fill in? If it doesn't have a value, what belongs there? If you said 0, you are correct. So we're going to go ahead and fill in our decimal. We cannot forget that because this does not represent a whole now. We're representing part of a whole. We only have 1/10. So I'm going to fill in my decimal, fill in the zeros. Therefore, I have the decimal 1/10. So 0 dot, or decimal 1 0, 1/10. We're going to look at the other one, the next one, which is 1/100. How does that going to look when we fill it in the place value chart? Now I can't go back and I can't erase, it would take too long, so I'm just going to fill it in below. So if I'm looking at 100th, or I want to represent the hundredths place, maybe I have 300ths or 400ths or 500ths or 1800ths. How would that look? That must mean that the last digit must fall in the hundredths place. Going back to my place value chart, I find the hundredths place. I only have 1/100th, so I'm going to put a 1 in the hundredths place. Remember, everywhere else is going to have a what. If you said 0, you are correct. What can we not forget though? We cannot forget the decimal. So if I want to represent the decimal 100th, well, that's 2 places after the decimal. So 0 decimal 0 1, representing 100th. Okay,